We are up. Chauncey, do you want to kick us off? Oop, you got to unmute yourself, brother.
Hello, and welcome to the MCEC Fam Show. I am Chauncey Williams, the coordinator of student success here at MCEC, which stands for Muskegon Community Education Center, the place where the center of your child's education is magnified in a collaborating community. Our focus here at MCEC is community involvement, careers, social emotional learning, and nutrition. What's up, PK? What or who do we have on the agenda today, fam?
We're absolutely lucky because we have two young people. Well, they're not young anymore, and I'm not getting any younger. Who are big reds, but they're doing miraculous things in and around the community here in Muskegon, which would be Jasmine Young, who is a co-founder and one of the people who runs Thrive Counseling and Consulting. But we also have Quentin Warren, who's coming to us from New Zealand, from the land of Oz, and we brought them on because obviously they're exemplars of what we want for all students, opportunities that they've taken, opportunities they've chosen, but really where they've gotten themselves, which is just an amazing story in and of itself. So that's who we got, Mr. Williams or Chauncey, and we're blessed and lucky to have them.
All right.
So you want to fire them off with the first questions, Chauncey?
Yeah, I could fire them off with the first question, but I want to give Quentin, he was a lot younger. I know Quentin through his grandfather, and I want to share a real quick story. I'm hanging out with Tori all the time, Vicky's son. So we hanging out. He said, we gotta go over to this house and see this big old white house. And it's late at night. I'm like, we just going up in the house? So I end up falling asleep on the couch, right? He going in the refrigerator getting food. I'm like, who house is this? So I go to sleep, somebody tap me on the shoulder. It's your grandfather, Mr. Warren. What's your name, young fella? I was like, who is you? He said, this is my house. From that day on, he set me down, talked to me about college, about being somebody, and I could out of your way. So that's why your family was great to my development, but that's my happenstance on how I met your family, because I'm hanging with my He said, let's go somewhere. And those dinners your grandmother used to cook, your family, man, that was like when the college goes around, Mr. Warren was like the positive image of the community. So I just want to share that with you. That was my happenstance, meeting somebody that was educated, that was a doctor, and that their door was always open. So my question,
always open.
Always. I'm talking about no matter what time of day it was, they were always willing to let you in.
And rest in peace to Tori too. Yeah.
That's right. Yep. So, but those people were blessings to me. So I just want to give you that and just share that story on how I connected with your family on that end.
Right. I was like, I told Kurja I saw your name on the list. I was like, oh yeah, I know Chauncey, man.
That's right, brother. So I appreciate you, man, and you living through the spirit, brother. So it says, here's my question. It's a happenstance question too. What unexpected event contributed to the most of you getting where you are present? So I've seen you in like commercials, doing a little film work. What unexpected event happened where you like, oh, this is the thing I'm gonna do? What lined the stars up for you? This is both. You get her chance.
You know what? So there's no one moment. It's what I've been learning is that moments way back in 2006 at Muskegon kicked that thing off. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy you ask me because I review this all the time because I wake up in a place. I live in I want y'all to know it's like 6 a.m. I don't do 6 a.m. So for Kurja, I did 6 a.m. So forgive me if I'm stumbling over my words and things this morning. It's still dark outside. But anyway, I'm in a country that is COVID free. We don't wear masks. We've been back to normal since June. And so I wake up in this kind of alternate reality feeling of like, it's not reflective of what everybody's talking about online. And so I feel a bit out of sorts. I'm like, what the hell? Where am I? How did I get to this? So I ask myself this all the time. And I just, every time I try to trace it, it's like, well, that led to this led to that led to this. So there's no one, there's always a moment of like your decision to go, but the leading up is just so intricate that it couldn't have been planned. It couldn't have been whatever. But to maybe try to answer the doggone question, the moment You just got to try something like that inkling. There's always like an inkling for something. I don't know. I hope everybody else has had this moment for themselves. It's like you think about it and you go, maybe. And then that'd be it, but then all of a sudden what I've learned is when you put something out and then it's still on your mind all the time, all of a sudden the universe just attracts it to you. So like I was putting this idea out like, oh, maybe I'll move. I never thought I would move, but I was like, I'll entertain it, and then you visit and then you have a meeting or so. When you start doing stuff like you're gonna do it, the universe will be like, okay, it'll just speed it up. It's like, okay, well, you taking the steps, I'm gonna just meet you. And then all of a sudden, I came here to visit for Christmas, 2016, and I was like, oh yeah, it's cool. It's a nice country and everything, but I live in LA. Like, I'm not leaving LA. Then I came back, this more talking. I was in a long distance relationship. That was part of the reason for trying to entertain something. I was like, well, clearly you're coming here to LA, like clearly, But I was like, I'll come visit again, and I'll have a meeting with some agents and see about it. And so I had a meeting with an agent, the top agent in the country. And it's so bizarre because that doesn't happen in the States. Like, you can't email an agent and then they set up a meeting with you. It doesn't happen. That's like 70s or 80s version. So, but it happened that way. So I met with like the top agent in the country. She was like, look, I'm keeping it real with you. You're African American. We don't have many of y'all here in the country. So if you come, you're gonna rack up. You're gonna take all this stuff because a lot of American projects come here to film. They always need Black people, and they want American accents, and they want true American accents. They don't want Kiwi trying to do it. They don't want the British folks trying to do it. They don't want Caribbean folks trying to do it. They want real African American folks. So she was like, "You gonna clean up? That's all I'm gonna tell you." And I was like, "Oh, okay, all right." So then I signed the contract, and I didn't even live there. I didn't live here yet. I still had to come back home. I was like, well, okay. I was like, you just do stuff. I don't know. My life has always been that way. You just find yourself stumbling into something amazing, And I was like, I'll be back in 6 months. Let me go home, tie some stuff up, and I'll be back in 6 months. That was October 2017. November 2007, a month later, she hits me up and was like, there's this show with Lucy Lawless. For those who are too young to know, Lucy Lawless is Xena. For those who are too young to know Xena was that mofo of the time, okay? The baddest of the game. So I was like, oh, Xena's doing a show, whatever. So she was like, I think you want to send a tape. And then she told me, I was like, well, when is the show? She said, well, next week. I was like, well, I told you 6 months. She's like, I think you just might want to send a tape. So I sent this tape. I was like, fine, you're my agent. I'll do it for you, but I know I'm not coming to New Zealand next week. So of course I sent this tape, and they're like, well, they want you, so you need to be in New Zealand next week. I'm like, I got a job. I had just got promoted. I hated my job. I was a property manager at the time in LA. I hated it so much. But I had just got promoted though, and I was making good money. I was finally able to sustain myself in LA. It takes a long time to get there if you come from money. And so I was like, so I quit my job, y'all. Long story short, I know it's like you said, I could take up the whole thing, but within 48 hours, I had quit my job, moved out of my apartment, and hopped a flight to New Zealand. And then I was here.
Wow.
It's very bizarre. Very bizarre.
But like you just said, the stars lined up. The universe said, hey, let's let it go.
Sometimes you just have to let it take you. Like, I promise y'all, most of the amazing things that have ever happened in my life, didn't plan them, didn't see them coming, and it wasn't me.
Yeah, me and Paul just had this conversation yesterday, and we talk about life being like a river, not a pond. And as you float, when you're flowing, and as things are coming in, you got to let go of things to receive new things, whether it's information, whether it's trinkets, where it's stuff you like, I don't need it, but this person need it. Let me share it with them. And as the universe sees that, it free flows to you because you're keeping everything in circulation. So it was great. That was a great story of happenstance. And like you said, you got that. We can talk all day. All right, we both got that gift. So I gotta let Jasmine answer the question. If Paul, somebody else want to say something, go ahead, Paul.
Well, I mean, it's Jasmine. Tell us about your happenstance. I mean, you've gone from a bachelor's level clinician at GVSU, if I remember correctly. You've gone through the master's programs, and now you're a business owner, and you're actually one of the people that I think if I were to walk in, I could receive your specific therapeutic support. So tell us how you got from graduating Muskegon High School all the way to running a business centered around counseling and consultation.
Yeah, I would say that my path has been a little bit more calculated and planned out than Quentin's. I'm not as big as a risk taker, unfortunately. And I am still in Muskegon, and I think that I don't know that there was a moment that necessarily led to me being here. There are some significant events. I think that I received the Wade McCree Scholarship in the 8th grade, and that definitely changed my mindset and allowed me to think that going to college was a possibility for someone like me. And so going into high school, knowing that I was eventually going to have the opportunity to go to college, it motivated me to do well in high school. And I did. And then I went to college. And then several events led me back to Muskegon. I've always really loved my community, and I'm very passionate about it. Very passionate about the work that I do and helping people. I feel that I have a really good understanding of some of the barriers that we face here. And so I've been able to use my experiences to try to create change here. So yeah, I don't know that there was a moment. I do know that being a social worker is it's something that came very natural to me. And the part about owning a business, at some point you just get sick of working for people. However, I still work for people. I'm sitting in a hospital right now where we have COVID and all the things that Quentin has fortunately got to get away from. I'm sitting here right in it. But I think that that's where I'm supposed to be, and that's okay with me. So yeah.
Well, and what she didn't tell you is that Wade McCree scholarship, that's a pretty huge scholarship that many students in Muskegon are eligible for, which begins paying for at least half of what the cost would be at Grand Valley, if not almost the full amount, depending. It's huge. And it's available. I mean, at the middle school, we gave out 30 of those just about each year. But
Wow.
but Jasmine has a laser focus, right? And I remember this when she was in school. You share something with her, and if she commits to doing it, I had a hard time finding mistakes in her essays. And that says something. I had a hard time because she's just that person who plans and executes. Now, Q that's just like you, Q, because you do things in a little different manner. But the interesting thing is both of you have found your passion by following who you are. And that's pretty huge, right? So
Yeah. No, go ahead.
well, when you look at this, when you look at yourself, Q, for example, what are some of the things that you sort of focused on in your own life and your own skill set to help you move from step to step? Because I know a lot of kids feel like I'm just a kid, I'm 17 years old, I'm not sure where to go, what to do. How did you figure out and start discerning a path?
Okay, so I'm gonna take it back to what Chauncey was talking about. Like my family, like that was my grandfather. My grandfather was Robert A. Warren, who was the first African American mayor of Muskegon Heights. He was mayor for like, I don't know, 25, 30 years until he passed away pretty much in 2000. And so growing up, so he was the superintendent, he was the mayor, he was an educator at some point. My grandmother was an educator. And so I grew up around that. So I was always, so they were always giving me old meat books that they probably weren't supposed to be giving me, or, I was always doing some kind of academic something, even out of school. And my father was that way, book reports in the summer, and my mother was that way. So education was always something that was like expected. So I never knew that I had a choice to do anything else until later. But so school was kind of always like in the forefront. We were talking about college in middle school, elementary. So that helped me, just having a village. But I know that a lot of people, don't have that kind of encouragement. I think I found acting and performance. I mean, I always like to perform. I think I was doing that since I was young. So I just fell into it really early, and my folks just let me. They thought it was an extracurricular thing because I also did sports. I did a lot of things. I was drum major, you know, I was in a band. So they were like, well, as long as you can keep it, as long as you keep your grades up, you can do whatever you want, was kind of the rule. And so I did that. I had straight A's all since like 6th grade. So then I was able to do whatever I wanted. And I think that was part of my motivation. I was like, as long as I keep my grades, I can do whatever I want. Everybody leaves me alone. What else? And then just seeing I grew up in like Muskegon kind of changed. Like Muskegon was really awesome growing up, and then all of a sudden, almost towards adulthood, like 2005, 2006, it started, you know, going left. And I had it in my brain like I have to leave. I'm leaving Michigan. So I didn't apply to any schools in Michigan, which was partly foolish at the time, you know, because with my grades and everything, I would have gotten a full ride probably to anywhere. But I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to go. I got to go. And that was just, I remember being so narrow minded about it at the time. And that's one of the things that kind of chain reacted. Like, I didn't know that that would mean I would never move back. Like, you do things at 17 and you're not thinking about long term. And so I went to Howard University in DC, and which was far away from me at the time. Like, you know, a small town kid moving to a big city of, you know, like Washington DC. Then I moved to LA 4 years later, stayed there for 7 years, and now I'm like as far away as I can be from home. You know, it's just like been this ongoing, like from that thought of I got to get out of here. Now I'm like I'm telling you, the universe hears you. And so to people who maybe don't have encouragement, or they feel like, oh, I'm just in Muskegon, what can I do? You know, this is all I know. I'm telling you, as long as it's up here, it can happen, and it will happen as long as you take a step. Like, it's one step. Like, I didn't know I was gonna get here, but you just take, like, it's like you got to kind of be ballsy about it. If you have something in mind, you're like, it's kind of scary. Do the scary stuff. You always have to do the scary stuff.
Do the scary stuff. I like, that's gonna be my new hashtag. Do the scary stuff. Jasmine, you're now a practitioner. It wasn't, you know, and you're a young mother and you have children and you remember your high school lives. What are some of the things that you've seen or are seeing as some of those traps or stumbling blocks or roadblocks that teenagers have? Ooh, that got weird.
You mean as far as for kids in the community?
Yeah, going, you know, kind of connecting with what you saw when you were in high school or school yourself. Now that you're a practitioner, what are some of the things that you see people struggling with?
Yeah, I think that just as my work as a social worker, systems have played a really big role in creating traps for people, as far as the opportunities that people are given, as far as certain mentalities that just have evolved throughout generations. The cycle of poverty, domestic violence, all those things play a role in creating traps for kids and not allowing them to reach their full potential. But I would definitely say that systems would probably be my biggest problem at this point.
Okay. So let's imagine for a moment that Mr. Ella, or that Tom goes into his shed and uses all of his magical physics abilities and creates a time machine. And the time machine is fairly accurate. You get bumped back to a fairly good time whenever you choose. Quentin, if you're going to go back in time and talk to 15-year-old Quentin, what would you tell him? I don't read lips well, brother.
Okay, yeah, I would say have more fun for me. I was all about school, and I was, you know, not sheltered, but I kept to the straight and narrow path. I didn't get to my wild stuff till later, but I'm like, I look back now, you could have done that stuff. You could have done that. You would have been fine. I didn't have to be so uptight.
How about you,
Definitely.
Jasmine? If you're going to go back and talk to 15-year-old self, what would you say to her?
I would probably say to have more confidence and use my voice. I was very, very quiet at 15. And I feel like I found my voice as an adult, but had I found it years before, I think that would have made things much easier.
Excellent. So this is the next question is one, and and Quentin already tried to call me out. The next question is, we know that people don't achieve and reach their potential and push against that potential and possibly through it without other individuals. I know Quentin talked a little bit about his grandparents. Jasmine, who's the person or some people who were there at those critical junctures or points in your life who you believe, looking back, helped you realize your potential?
I mean, I've always had a really supportive family, which I think helped, but I would say academically, professionally, it was probably my teachers. For example, I believe that if I had never taken your class, writing a paper in college would have been almost impossible for me. I think that sometimes in inner city schools have so many things that they're trying to balance that they have to make certain sacrifices. And so kids go into college at different levels than other kids. And so I feel that some of the classes that I took maybe didn't prepare me. They may have prepared me great for certain things in life, but not necessarily for college. And I get that and I understand why. But I think that teachers that took time to push me, even in directions that I didn't think that I could go myself, those probably were the game changers for me, and they allowed me to get through college.
That's real. I'll say that too. Yeah, Kurt, you one of the people. No, same thing. I remember getting to college in freshman English, and people didn't know how to write. And I was like, me coming, I'm like, y'all don't know that. I was very rude in my things at the time. I wasn't very sympathetic to people. I've changed, but I was like, "What? Y'all don't know this? Y'all don't know?" I was like, and so I used to hit Kurt up all the time, like, "Man, the stuff you teach is real." And he was like, "Thank you, appreciate that." So yeah, definitely Kurt. I was some of the band directors. My love for music and just being able to read music, and it's propelled me, even as a singer and performer now, when you can read music, it's leaps and bounds. A lot of my auditions, they give you sheet music to read. And so you have to kind of learn that very fast, you know what I mean? And those are skills that I learned, starting in middle school. A lot of things that you think you're just doing and end up being an integral part of your adult life, if you pay attention. Yeah.
So as you know, I mean, the people, as speaking as a teacher, the students we come into contact with, excuse me, are probably bigger blessings than the blessings we bestow upon the students. That's just a reality. I remember your smart mouth and how you would lord your knowledge over your peers just a little bit. And I remember Jasmine being a support I mean, her framework of friends and so forth. So let me ask you this. Here's my question. How are you recognizing blessings in your own career? What are the blessings that come up as part of what you do in your work? Jasmine, you get to go first.
I think that that's probably something that as a social worker, I look for all the time, because it's just a hard, kind of emotionally draining job at times. And so anytime that I can find a nugget of change that I've made, or if I find someone that I feel like I've actually helped, I think that those are those moments for me. For example, if I have a mom here at the hospital that's had a baby, and I'm able to help her get a crib, or help her find support so that she doesn't feel so alone, things like that, I think those moments definitely make it worth it.
You?
Okay. No, I was like, yes, yes. Um, I think they come in different forms. So some of them come in forms of just being able to, like for acting, sometimes you get a part. Um, I had a professor tell me that you never get a part that isn't what you need at the moment. Like you always attract something that you need to learn about or something. So whether it's, so the blessings come from you learn from these characters that you play or interact with, whether it's in a play or on TV. And some of those lessons stay with you. You don't just act and get the check and then keep it moving. So those blessings, you grow from the lessons. I've been blessed by I get to meet people from all over the world and I get to travel. So that's a blessing because I feel like um, I have a worldwide view, whereas a lot of people don't have that, and you can. It's hard to explain. It's what is the allegory of the cave? It's like when the guy goes, is that what it is? You go in and you figure out what the shadows are, and you try to come back and tell the people, and it's like it's kind of like that until you actually do it. You don't realize how big like you just make different connections and different understandings and perspectives about some of the things that you were caught up on back home. So I think a blessing has been to see the world and to meet people from all over the world, to be able to influence and expand my mind about how the world works and what it should and shouldn't be. um and another blessing is that being a performer, you be broke, and unless you have that breakout, you become the next Will Smith or something like that early. You broke for a while. And so for a long time, other people had to carry me. I was borrowing money or sleeping on someone's couch or whatever. But my career has blossomed into a place where I'm able to bless others in need. People can stay with me, or I can, loan whatever. And that's a really amazing. I never thought I'd be able to do that. Let me tell you that. So blessings all around. Blessings on blessings on blessings.
So here's the last question, and I always hog all the question asking. So Tom and Chauncey and Brent may want to ask something, and that's my fault.
Be excited.
So my homie Marie Williams popped in just a minute ago because she's always making sure I stay in my lane and stay on the script, right? So what if, right, if all kids came to Muskegon Middle School, used to be Steele Middle School for those of you who attended Steele, to 1150 Amity, and we piped this broadcast into the auditorium, what words would you want to say to 750 middle schoolers? What words would you want to impart to them today? 750 kids ranging from 11 years old, 12 years old to possibly 15. What would you want to say to them?
Jasmine, you want to?
I would probably say that at least when I was in middle school, I went to Bunker, not Steele, but that's okay. That the teachers around you, if they're trying to build relationships with you, it's because they care about you, and you should let them. You should talk to them when you need help. Any grown-up around you that's trying to build a relationship with you and help you, take that. Don't push it away, even though it's hard. Because relationships, even having one relationship with one positive grown-up can make a huge difference in your life. And they can really guide you in the right direction, even if you don't have any other grown-ups outside of school that are doing that, or even if you do.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's really great. I would say it's never too early to love yourself. It's never too early for anything. To love yourself, to love what you do, to find your passion, to become who you are, and let no one shame you or discourage you from doing that. If you are in the chess club and that's your thing, you want to be the next Bobby Fischer, do that thing. The world has taught me that whatever it is that you really like and really sets you on fire, that is your thing, and it can take you wherever you want it to take you. So I think I saw a lot of folks, you know, in middle school, you know, you're like, oh yeah, you think it's weird that you like that, or you know, you're weird, or people tease you for being a certain way, or whatever. But that's the clue. Like when somebody's telling you you're weird, or they're strange, or they trying to lean into that, you know, or you're scared to do it. Always do the scary thing. So talk to the teachers, have the relationships, do the audition, go to that band class, go to that after school activity, try out for that sport, you know what I mean? And keep doing it, even if it doesn't work out. Things are a bit clunky sometimes. I know in middle school you'd be really ashamed to do stuff and look bad because you know your friends clown you. It's okay. You get clowned, and let me tell you something, you get clowned, you feel it then, but years later, you don't care about the stuff. None of that stuff lasts. You know what I'm saying? The embarrassment doesn't last. Hopefully. I mean, social media may make it different because things last longer. But you know what I'm saying? Do it. You will feel way worse later if you don't try the things than if you do. I promise.
So Brent, I have to apologize. I won't make fun of you anymore for Star Wars cosplay. I was wrong. You lean into that. You lean into that cosplay, Brent. It's okay if you want to be Darth Vader. Ooh, sorry.
Coming from the guy that has approximately 1,000 Star Wars figurines in his office right now.
Hey, but cosplay is real. People are making real money doing cosplay.
Yeah,
that's a real thing now.
That's what Brent was telling me. I mean, no, not really. Hey, fellas, are there any questions that you'd like to ask our guests? Because I know I hogged the question asking again.
No, I went to school with Quentin. I didn't have the pleasure of going to school with Jasmine. She is a little younger, maybe slightly a lot younger than I am. Quentin was a freshman. And I just remember, you know, back in my younger, a little more immature days, just how authentic. He's an amazing musician, and he's right. I can testify. He just did him, and he did him really well. And it's really cool to see him doing so well. And you did it your way. And I think that's great. And I really appreciate the message from both of you guys today.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And Jasmine, I can't say enough about, I mean, how important I think it is for people to find their passion, and for those people who find that setting being back in their hometown, whether it's their hometown or anywhere else, but finding your cares and finding the people you want to care about is a huge testimonial to the kind of human being you are and the kind of work you want to do, because we desperately need 5 million Jasmines and Quentins in the city of Muskegon, because people need to I mean, because you guys are kind of like, you know, the yin and the yang, right? I mean, if we had more people reminding kids, supporting kids, letting them know to lean into who they are, to seek out a grown-up, those things are so critical for kids to become who they want to become. So Chauncey, were you going to ask a question?
I was going to do a follow-up what Quentin said with the global worldview. That's very important, because you look at how they look at being humble and humility, but also their open-mindedness of where they're at when it comes to an ego. And what you guys have shared is your perception and perspective of who you are. But the experiences you had, you use them to propel you. If there's lessons or if they were hurts, they are all things that you have in your toolkit as you go on and inspire. And that's what a global worldview is. So when I heard it, I was like, oh, okay, we've been having a good streak of people on, and I'm glad we're able to find people that understand having a worldview, because everybody is important in this thing we call the world. I look at it as a puzzle. It's pieces that everybody plays, integral parts. So I'm gonna let Tom follow me up, because he has to experiment, fail, learn, and repeat. He does a great job with our students when it comes to getting them to connect. He's a great relationship builder.
Well, I'm curious is if, you know, just going what Chauncey said, if there's a experience, you know, Paul kind of asked about a happenstance where it propelled you forward. Is there something that happened that you thought would knock you back? And how did you battle through that to get to where you are?
Well, I've had many, but I think the one that comes to mind first, I went homeless in LA at one point. You know, you hear these stories, you know, Tyler Perry's and other folks who, you know, you go to the big city, you chase your dream, and then you lose it all, and then, you know, whatever. But you like, that's their story, you know. But it can happen very easily. That's a worldview, you know. Just right here, that when I was still in the States, you know, you see homeless people all the time. There's two things I'm gonna speak to. So you see homeless people all the time, and before then, I had never really considered people's stories and how they got there. You know, there was a certain way you were taught to think about homelessness. You know, that you failed, or you know, it was your fault, or whatever. And you learn like it's not how it works. You know. So you know, that was one of the points where I really had to humble myself, and just, you know, I learned how to have faith in the better day. You know, I try to keep that lesson with me all the time, that when things are going wrong or not going my way, or you know, I'm stressed about it, you have to really lean into peace of mind. Having peace in the midst of um, a storm, it's easier said than done, but once you access it, nothing stops you ever again. It's like, once you make it to that space of like calm, and it's different for everybody, whether it's meditation or you know, whatever you do to find that for yourself. It's like when you find that zen of like, the world around me is falling all over the place, but I am intact. um you just learn how to handle adversity very well. So that was one of the moments that taught me just how to stay calm in the midst of things looking like they're not going to work out, but it always works out. It always, where you might be uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is different from not working out. So you learn that too. You know, you know, life can be uncomfortable, but it's not working out.
And for me, I think that probably one of the most, um, I'll call it a devastating moment that turned into a gift, I guess, is I got pregnant with my daughter when I was a freshman in college. And so obviously that was a big life-changing event for me that um, had the potential to make my life go the complete opposite way of the way that it was going. However, it didn't. I continued. Um, and I had lots of resources and help that helped me continue. So I was able to come out the other end, probably the same way that I would have had I not had her. So
That's real. That's a good one. I have people come to mind just who didn't, you know, who had kids early on, didn't do that, and like stopped their journey. And I think a lot of people will benefit from hearing that, you know, that it is possible, you know. um so I think that that's amazing.
So those are, I'm sorry, Brian, I cut you off. Did you have a question?
Somebody else had, I want to come at this one. I guess I'm probably the best person to ask it too, because I guess I fit the you of it as an educator. They said they love your message, right? But what about teaching children of color about our successes in schools, in the school system, other than just slavery in February? Now I know the answer, but I want to know what you guys think when it comes to, because I know it's 365, 24/7 for me. When I was an educator, I always put images of people that look like me in front of my students. So
Right.
what do you think? Because like you said, you're in the field, you're in the land it's not many of you, right, that look like you, but you're doing swell and great. And then she's in a field where it's not many of her, but it was something put in front of you other than slavery, images of slaves, that helped you see your potential. So help this teacher, this educator that asked this question on our Zoom, on our Facebook feed. What should they do to feed into that? Because a lot of times people say, oh, back in the slave days, you got to think civilization goes back 6,000 years. So it's like, it's kingdoms, it's pyramids, it's amazing things. So what's your take on that when a teacher, it's like, oh, it's February, Black History Month, let me show them slaves. What do you do?
What do you do as a student? What do you do as a teacher?
As an educator.
As an educator.
If you want to approach it any way you want to approach it. Because like sometimes you're in situations where it's like the institution, like Jasmine said, it's like, oh, we don't teach that at all. So it's like you have to be it's predominantly white, or it's like, all right, I'm in the school, Black History Month, this is what we're gonna do. Or what is it for you? Or
so, you know, do the scary stuff. Because I've had teachers who, I mean, you find a way to navigate stuff. If you really want to, I've had people, you know, like, hey, you know, whether it's on like in between classes or lunch break, I was, you know, or you do an independent study and call it something else, or, you know, teachers who really care, you know, and they realize there's a student who wants it. But as far as like getting it to all of your students, sometimes you just have to go against the grain and take the heat. What I mean, people get fired, people, you know, get in trouble or written up or whatever it is. But I think those things are worth it because then people, I mean, you have made the lasting impression. You have touched someone. Um, I think you just have to really just do what is in your heart to do, and you can probably satisfy some of the stuff. I mean, those things are important. Those things happen. Slavery happened. Black History Month is a thing that is designated for things, but it doesn't have to be the end all be all. You can do that and still give more. I think one thing I would do is just sometimes it's kind of it's a tricky thing to do. It's like we've done so much over the years to highlight Black history and Black contributions to society when it kind of others us sometimes to people. You know, they think it's a specific, it's only for Black people to know. It starts doing this converse effect. So I think if you start incorporating it like normal, it won't seem like you know what I mean? And when you start talking about whatever, when you talk about science, you know, breakthroughs or, you know, I think really pay attention to what is happening in the now. So Black people doing things all over the place, all the time. You know, they're the first this, the first that, and you don't necessarily have the announcements that, but it's still happening. It's the fact of the matter. But I think a lot of times I think the issue and why we even have a Black History Month or why we specify that we gonna learn about Black things today is because we've negated that they were happening all this time. They've always been happening. They're still happening, you know? So I think if you just incorporate it with all the other stuff, it'll just be normal, you know? And then it just becomes every day. And then people won't have this kind of like asterisk ideology about Black people and Black things. Like it's, oh, special interest over there. It's like, no, this is part of everyday things. So I think that would be my encouragement for the approach.
And look, there you go again. You a global worldview person. That's it. You just answered it in a global worldview. Like, look, make it part of it. Like if you're talking about a car, the invention, well, there's some things that each culture contributed to that. So,
and sometimes just visual. You know, I had I don't mean to take up time. I had a talk with Will Smith. I was like, where am I getting this from? I had a talk with Will Smith. I was an intern for him at one point. Wow. And I asked him about his career and the decisions he made. And he was like, you know what? A big part of my success is that I didn't tell people I was doing Black stuff. He was like, sometimes when you tell people we're doing Black stuff, they shy away from it. It was like, he was like, you know, he started comparing stuff. He was like, you know, when I did Bad Boys, we didn't say this is a Black film for Black people about Black stuff in the Black hood, and because it wasn't marketed that way. He was like, it was me and Martin. He was like, we're as Black as it gets. He was like, me and Martin Lawrence. We were in the hood. We were saying Black jokes. You know, we had Black wives, whatever. He was like, but do you think that's a Black film?
No.
And I was like, oh, I never thought. No. He was like, it's an action film. There are Black people in it. He was like, the thing about being Black is people know when you show up. he was like, you don't have to tell people. He was like, and people, you know, he was like, that's a bit controversial. You know, BET. You want to put it on BET? He was like, we ain't marketing on BET. We put it on ABC, where everybody else who wants movies to be seen puts their ads. And I was like, yeah, you know. I mean, I shouldn't be telling he said it out loud, but whatever. But I mean, it kind of speaks to this moment of like, if you just treat it like it will be Black because it is. You are Black and you show up in it, and your things will be in it, and it won't be we being Black. It'll just be, hey, these people are Black doing this thing. So I think that translates to everything. That's where I got that from. So I think that's the ideology. It's like, hey, just be it, and it will be amazing.
Thank you. What about you, Jasmine?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, we need to have more Black educators, and if not educators, parapros, counselors, because it is much easier for kids to identify with grownups that look like them. And I've seen that in counseling, here in the hospital, just all over the place. And then also I've worked in other districts where we did tracking of like disciplinary actions based on race. So I don't know if your district does that, but being able to have data to back up what you're saying, to say like, we need implicit bias training for this school because African-American boys are receiving harsher disciplinary action than other students. So I'd say that that's important. Training is important. I know a really good implicit bias trainer if you need one. And then,
Thank you.
and then if you're a white teacher teaching Black kids, I would say that your biggest asset is going to be creating relationships with them and their parents, because it's not only the kid that needs to trust you, but it's the parent that needs to trust you. And sometimes I think that takes owning some of your own biases and own opinions, and just kind of getting past all of that and saying, this is just extra work that I have to do, even though it's unfortunate and maybe you shouldn't have to, but you do. And so if you go into it knowing that you have to do this extra work, building these relationships with families, then it can make things just much easier when you do have to go to them and have difficult conversations, or if they have to come to you and have difficult conversations. And it just starts to humanize people instead of just, teacher student.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you, Jasmine and Quentin. I know Quentin is 6 a.m. or so there, and Jasmine, I know that you've got a very busy schedule. I appreciate you both being willing to come on and share a bit about your lives, because we're trying to offer that alternate narrative, right? That there are people out here who are being successful, who are doing amazing things, and we just appreciate you being willing to jump on and share with us today. So thank you very much.
No problem. No problem. Of course.
Thank you.
And our next segment is the food segment. So I'm not expecting you to necessarily have to stick around, because I know you guys have responsibilities. So if you need to split and go, that's perfectly appropriate and okay. And then we'll close out the show.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
You got me up. I'll stay because you got me up.
I have people that need me.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Thanks, Jasmine.
All right, Brent, it's all you.
I don't know how in the world I'm ever going to follow those two, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to give it a chance. So amongst our culinary scavenger hunt of the unique eateries in Muskegon, the city of Muskegon, our travels have taken us to a hot dog place today. Okay, now they don't just do hot dogs. They're called Lake Dog Coney Island. Okay, they're located in Lakeside. For those of you that are familiar, the space is where Subway used to be. Okay, and they're across the street from the marina on Lakeshore Drive, kind of down by the other stuff that's down there. Okay, on your way to the beach. They've got an assortment of things. They've got hot dogs and burgers and salads and poutine and a lot of other things that are really good. So I called up. We decided to do these guys today. I got the Lake Dog Special, which it's a Detroit style dog, which is a little different than maybe you're used to. Okay, but I got like the little savory nuggets on top. Like I got the seasoned beef on top with all the mustard and the oniony goodness. Okay, I've never had this before. This is PK's baby, and so we're gonna try it. I'm gonna take a bite here, and I'm gonna let PK catapult us into a level of deliciousness unknown to man. PK, what did you get?
Well, I'm trying to watch my ever-growing figure, which has not been very successful lately, given that when I fractured those 2 ribs falling in the backyard, it just kind of makes for an excuse to just go off the rails as far as eating is concerned, right? So I'm on my way back to the proper place to be. I got the basic Coney dog because I'm kind of old-fashioned. Growing up in Muskegon, all of us had macaroni and cheese and hot dogs at least one time during our youth, and the kids used to always heat me because they said that all I ate was boxed macaroni and cheese. Well, that's clearly not the case anymore, but was the case back then. So I took a bite of this chili dog earlier because I couldn't wait, and it's very different. It's different from what we're accustomed to in Muskegon, because in Muskegon, of course, it's G&L, right? Where G&L has sort of the boiled beef and there's some seasoning of some sort in there. This is more of a true chili where it has kind of like the tomato base. It's pretty good. Now, I can't be eating hot dogs every day. But when I get that hankering for a tube steak, this would be a nice alternative to GNL, which is what I grew up on. How about you, Tom, Chauncey? What about your little bit of deliciousness over there? Well, Tom, not you, but Chauncey.
I got mine. I used to live in Detroit for like 7 years, and I lived across the street from a Coney Island. So I used to be a Coney Island connoisseur when it came to Coney's. And in Detroit, Coney stayed open 24 hours. So it's like you can go anytime and get a Coney. So I just tasted it. I said, okay, I'm not trying to put GNL down, but it is better than the GNL. I can say that.
Yeah.
But it don't have that Detroit funk on it when it comes to the mustard and the chili, but it's a good alternative. I tell you that. Cause I know my wife called me a connoisseur of Coney's, so I got a license in them. So when I know when it hit a certain way.
Now,
Can I say something about food? Oh,
go ahead.
Good.
Yes.
I just want to say
No,
something
go
about
ahead.
food since I'm here. Everywhere I've been, like there's still things from Muskegon that no one has beat. Like Scrib's Pizza, Fricano's Pizza, Flamingos, chips, cheese, and meat. And you know, I tried barbecue turkey knuckles. People don't even, did you know I just recently found out that turkey knuckles is not a thing outside of Muskegon? Like I've
did them
been,
last
you know,
week.
my friends from, I thought it was a Southern thing. So, you know, people from Georgia or Mississippi, I'm like, yeah, turkey knuckles. And everybody is like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, turkey knuckles. They're like, what the hell are knuckles on turkeys? You know? And so I researched, when you Google turkey knuckles, it says, you know, Muskegon made popular in Muskegon. I'm like, oh, snap. So clearly Muskegon knows more about food than anywhere else in the world. I'm just put that out there. So there are things that have been unmatched, I will say. In my
We had some turkey knuckles last week that make you break a sweat. I mean, those things.
I'm gonna tell you, I miss it, y'all. You know, there's a lot of things I miss about the States, and the food is one of them, and definitely Muskegon in particular. There's some things you just can't get anywhere else.
So the one thing that stood out to me when I took a bite of it, okay, is if anybody has had a good hot dog, I mean a good hot dog, okay, it's the crunch. Okay, you think, wow, the crunch. Well, it's how they make it, right? When you take a bite into the hot dog, you get a nice little pop. Okay, the chili's good, the meat's good, the fries are good. Okay, it's a reasonable price. It's under $10. You can get 2 dogs and fries and a meal. And so go see these guys, check them out. I highly recommend it. It's called Lake Dog Coney Island, right on Lakeshore Drive, down by the Old Harbor Theater. It's actually right next door. So I recommend it. It's good. Good hot dog.
Well, I think we have a meeting here in like 1 minute. Chauncey, you want to shut us down, close us out so we can walk on down the road?
I got it.
And again, Q, good looking out. Thank you.
That was fun.
For sure. Yeah.
I'm just trying to finish out my hot dog. Somebody said Coney's was originated in New York. I was like, I don't want no $8 hot dog.
And by the way, today it's Thursday, aka Chauncey's cheat day.
Yeah, that's right. All right, here we go. Signing off. Well, that's the end of our live hour. Thanks for tuning in to MCEC Fam Show, the place where the center of your child's education is magnified in a collaborating community. See you.
Thanks, Q. I'll see y'all later.
I see it.